All right, everybody. Well, hey, welcome back to the channel. We're going to do a quick one today, and it is about the same topic as yesterday. But this time, I wanted to share with you the posts that were very troubling and concerning and worrying and terrifying to Mr. Owen Strachan, Owen Strawn. Yeah. So this is a very interesting situation that we find ourselves in here because Brian Sauvé, he has put his finger on something that I've talked about so many times. I know it's true because it's in the Bible. You see it in the Bible as well, and I've seen it over the years in various situations. But right now, we are seeing it. It all happens in real time. How people can lose their composure. So let's begin. All right, here, let's get my peppermint. There we go. We're set to go. So here is Owen Strachan, and he says this about this clip that New Christendom Press posted. It's a Brian Sauvé talking for about a minute and a half. And the way Owen presents this to his audience is, this is really troubling. White culture is depraved just like black culture. Truth is not connected to skin color. Truth is derived from God alone. We don't need our churches to have a lot more white culture. We need them to have a biblical culture. Racialism is poison. Racialism is poison. And that's how he presents it. Now, that's supposed to sound very scary, especially to, Owen Strawn's audience. They're going to be very terrified and scared and sweating bullets, all troubled and concerned and all of that. But let's hear him out. Let's hear what Mr. Brian Sauvé has to say, because it sounds terrifying.
Let's say that somebody was coming into our church and they're black, and would they be eligible for membership in our church? Yes, they of course they would. They'd be eligible for membership in our church. But would they be permitted to participate in, embody, and practice what I would call black culture generally in our church? The answer is absolutely not. Why?
What?
Because the characteristics that mark black culture as a generalization, in the same way Paul's talking about Cretans on Crete, they are evil, murderous, violent, bestial people. They steal, they kill, they destroy. They are sinful to the core. They have besetting sins that are like fatherlessness, sexual immorality. They molest children at a high rate. All of any criminal statistic that you could look at, almost pretty much without exception, they excel at them. Black culture.
And it's even interesting. I mentioned it before,
but like God, he looks
black
even
guy
worse
on TikTok. He was saying, he's like, y'all crazy. Like, you talking about this person like it's mental health. He said, that ain't no mental health. That's a demon.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of people are seeing that. Like, this behavior is demonic. To walk up to a white girl.
Either, but yeah.
And to cut her throat.
Because she's white.
Because she's white, and be like, yeah, we got that white girl.
We got that white girl. And when you think about it, you look at that culture and you say, what are the besetting sins and characteristics of it? And then you say, could somebody come in a lawful church membership embodying that culture? No. They have to self-consciously repudiate that culture.
Yeah. Well, when you actually hear the clip, I mean, it sounds very reasonable. I mean, this is stuff we all have agreed on over the years, but Owen is very, 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 very troubled by this. That's not black culture. How could you say that's not black culture? And all of that kind of thing. But we all know it's true. I mean, this is the thing. Like Owen has a very tough road ahead of him because he will get, of course, hysterical women of both genders that will applaud him. Amen, those racists, that kind of thing. But he's kicking against the goads here. This is flies in the face of reality. We all know this is true. This is why we laughed at Chris Rock's sketch about the different kinds of black people that are around, and how black people hate the other kind too. You know what I mean? And he goes into the whole thing. It was an Office sketch. You remember? And I was like, that was good. Listen, I'm not telling you to watch it because there's a lot of curse words in it, so I don't ever want to necessarily recommend that to just anybody. But if you haven't seen it, you know, you have a high tolerance for that kind of thing. I mean, it's very funny, and we all laughed at it. Black people laughed at it. In fact, I've been watching some videos of modern black people, 2025, that had never seen that before. What was it from? Like probably early 2000s. And they're laughing, and they're all like, "Yeah, it's totally true. It's totally true." So anyway, we all know this is true. This is accurate, you know, and so you know, Owen's got quite a tough slog ahead of him if he's gonna be clutching his pearls really tightly over this, and all of that kind of thing. Now, you know, there's so many examples I could point to of various men that Owen would say are good men, godly men of God, and all of these kinds of things, track record of ministry, all this, that have said the same thing over the years. Dr. James White has said similar things. Doug Wilson has said similar things, that black culture has a problem, a very, very big problem. And it's not that there aren't reasons for the problem. There's lots of complex reasons for the problem. We talked about one of them yesterday, about this whole idea of getting respect and maintaining respect. And, you know, you got to go down, you know, you don't want to be a punk, right? So you got to, you know, fight at every moment and this and that. That's part of black culture. It's how they grow up. And I'm not saying every black person does that. You know, sure, there's some black people when they're arrested or someone's writing them a ticket for a minor infraction, that they just accept it, you know what I mean? Because they know logically, yeah, if I make a big scene here, this is going to create an incident. So they just accept the ticket, just like I would, you know, just like you would, that kind of thing. But then, of course, but we understand that's not the rule necessarily. That's the exception to the rule a lot of the time. And so, you know, we all understand this, right? But Owen is incapable. He's not capable of not whipping the whipping boy. And the whipping boy in this case is Brian Sauvé and Eric Kahn. They're a very convenient whipping boy for someone like Owen, who doesn't have a whole lot of bravery or courageousness. He's kind of like he's a kind of a chameleon, you know. He'll come out when it's safe and be against wokeness. Like a lot of the brave people came out against wokeness early on, and then Owen was kind of woke back then, and then when the coast was clear, you know, then Owen came and he wrote his book about wokeness and all this kind of stuff. But he just keeps doing the same thing. There's no courageousness in him, and so when he wants to take his shots and maybe galvanize his, you know, effeminate audience, he'll take shots like this because, you know, New Christendom is a very easy whipping boy. You know, nobody likes New Christendom anymore, right? And then, of course, Joel is a classic whipping boy. You know, you want to get some attaboys from your crazy audience. Yeah, just say something Joel said was stupid. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what he was actually saying. Just, you know, this is evil and troubling and scary. You know, that kind of thing. That's how you get props in these circles. But what's so amazing about this, and this is just old hat. You know, we've seen this from guys like Owen Strachan and Owen in particular before. I posted earlier, or yesterday rather, a screenshot from the Statement of Social Justice that Owen championed, you know, very courageously. Once the coast was clear and all the other guys were doing it, he signed it too. And it talks about that not every culture is equally, you know, valid or good or righteous. You know, like different cultures, some are worse than others. You know what I mean? It's just a fact. Some are worse than others. And that's really just a half a step away from what Brian Sauvé is saying here. Brian Sauvé, because he's more courageous, is going to be more explicit about it. He's not worried about people, you know, calling him racist or Nazi or anything like that. That doesn't scare him. So he'll just say what's patently obvious to anybody. But Owen doesn't really understand how it connects to his signing the Statement on Social Justice. And so, you know, he's all mixed up, right? He's all horrified, that kind of thing. But this is old hat, like I said. We've covered this many times, but this is amazing to me because Owen is, of course, very upset about the Charlie Kirk assassination. Charlie Kirk is the greatest guy around. He's the opposite of a whipping boy in today, right? I mean, you know, Brian Sauvé, he's a whipping boy. Charlie Kirk is the opposite of a whipping boy. He's the one you want to rally around, right? Like that kind of thing. And I'm not saying he isn't, you know what I mean? He's just the opposite of a whipping boy. So if you want to score points with your audience, You praise Charlie Kirk. You lift him up, and what a great example. And all these things are true. I'm not saying they're not true, but I'm just trying to set this up here. He's the opposite of a whipping boy. Well, Brian Sauvé posted this little clip, and I want you to hear this clip. Charlie Kirk believed the exact same thing that Brian Sauvé believed. He just wasn't a pastor. Wasn't talking about it in a pastoral context, but listen to this.
So the more money we've spent on black America, the less fathers we have because black women divorced black men and married the government.
And do you think that's a problem inherent to black people?
No, it's not. It's happening now in white communities and Hispanic communities. It's just the worst in black America.
And why do you think that is?
Why is it the worst in black America? There's also a cultural problem. There is, and we have to be honest about it.
It's just that black people are
No, let me ask you a question.
Like
the average music that a black person in Compton is listening to, is it about contemplating the good, the true, and the beautiful, or is it about being a gangbanger and trying to get as much money and sleep with as many girls as you can?
I would actually...
I commented on this in my old content. I called it the money cash hose, right? You remember when Eric Mason, or maybe it wasn't Eric, someone else, maybe Thabiti or someone, talked about how rappers got diversity and equity and inclusion and kingdom-mindedness better, more correct than the church. The money cash hose, that's better for race relations, of course.
I like to think I would be offended by that.
Do you think the average black kid in Compton is listening to Beethoven or some sort of gangster rap music that glorifies gangster culture?
Silly question. Rap wasn't created to glorify gangster culture. So even though there is rap, I'm sure that's doing that.
You're dodging the question because...
Okay, I'm sure they're listening to rap.
Okay.
So you think rap music makes them leave their mom?
Do you think the cultural expectation in black America is that you stay with the woman that you impregnate?
Within black communities? I can't speak on that.
Okay, the answer is no. It's not. It's not expected.
Okay, and do you think that
hold on, in white Anglo-Saxon Protestant communities, it's a fact. Hold on. In upper middle class white communities...
Upper middle class. Say that part louder.
Yeah, upper middle class white Anglo-Saxon Protestant communities, if you impregnate a woman, you are looked down upon and we do not think highly of you if you abandon the woman that you impregnate. Mm-hmm. That's a cultural difference. Has nothing to do with money. Has nothing to do with anything except norms. And the norms that have infected black America are destroying it from within. We need more fathers, not less. We need more dads around and less drag queen story hour. We need more young blacks to be able to look up to role models that are not leaving all the time and are not just saying, hey, I impregnated her, so be it. It's a toxin, and if we don't address that as the root cause, it's white supremacy, it's injustice, it's economics, we're dancing around the core of the issue.
I guess.
Nailed it. He absolutely nailed it. I mean, and then again, this is, most Charlie Kirk clips are like this, where he's cuts right through the BS, he keeps going, keeps his eye on the prize, and doesn't relent. He's obviously a very courageous man, very courageous, and he'll just say it, you know what I mean? Obviously, they're approaching it from different perspectives. Brian Sauvé is a pastor, so he's approaching it from a pastoral perspective. Charlie Kirk is a, apologist, political, all this kind of stuff. And so he's approaching it from that perspective. But he nailed it. They're saying essentially the same thing. This is unacceptable. Black culture, the things that they value, the norms there are unacceptable. And if you're going to join a church that takes the word of God seriously, you've got to leave that stuff behind. You just have to. It's as simple as that. And so Brian Sauvé points out very, very, well, there are many who love to build monuments to dead prophets, even as they persecute the living prophets saying the same thing. We hear this from the Bible. I've commented on this so many times. But I'm still amazed right now because we're seeing it happen in real time, in the same day, in the same span of a couple days. We've got venerating people that were lauded correctly for their courage, for their ability to cut through the nonsense and just say it the way it has to be said, the way we all know it's true. We all know this is true. And so we ought not to be silly and stupid about this and say, well, what about the black? They invented the blues and the jazz, and then what about the collard greens? And we all love collard greens. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I like collard greens too. I like John Coltrane, you know what I mean? I understand that there's some debate on whether how good jazz is and stuff like that, but I like John Coltrane. You ever heard of Love Supreme? Beautiful. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But this first of all, these are the things we're talking about. Number one, number one, but number two, that's not all there is, right? Obviously, and there are tremendously huge problems in black culture that absolutely have to be addressed by the black communities. It's as simple as that. They have to. But you hate Brian Sauvé, so when he says it, well, you're troubled and scared and worried and you're sweating bullets and you want to, throw some red meat to your ridiculous audience, and so you whip the whipping boy, right? You whip the whipping boy. But over here, he's no longer with us. And so you laud him for saying the same thing. It's absolutely amazing. I just don't believe that Owen will ever see this. I don't think, honestly, I just don't think he's got the brains to really understand how these things connect, right? I don't think he understands really what he signed in the Statement of Social Justice and how it connects to what Brian Sauvé was saying. And I just think he has a hard time with the connections of things, right? Like he can understand something on a book level, but when it comes to, connecting it to the web of everything else, he's not very good at that kind of thing. I just don't think he's disciplined enough to control his hatred for guys like Brian Sauvé and Joel Webbin for just a moment. Just step out of it for a second. Get out of your emotions for 1 second. I don't think he has the discipline to do that. And so he'll continue to beat this whipping boy and talk about how troubled he is. Maybe he'll walk it back a little bit. But he'll say, it's still concerning. It's so concerning. We must be more careful and all this kind of stuff. It's just how it is. It's just how it is. But for those in my audience, I happen to think that my audience is quite intelligent. You're going to have conversations with people that basically act and believe just like Owen does. Just like Owen does. This is the norm. And you need to be ready to understand what you're dealing with. And just without getting angry, don't get angry at people like this. You know what I mean? We have some fun with Owen here, but, that's special. That's special between me and Owen. Don't get angry with people for thinking like a normie, but just talk to them. Wait a minute, let's just try to take a step back here. You remember Chris Rock, right? That was funny stuff. Why was that funny? Why was that funny? Well, there's a lot of truth there, right? Why was Dave Chappelle, when Keeping It Real goes wrong? Why was that funny? We all laughed at that. We all had a great time back then. Well, it's funny because it's kind of true. It doesn't matter if you're an executive or you're rich or poor. There's a cultural thing that we need to understand is kind of unacceptable. And until you even admit that there's an unacceptable cultural element here, I mean, what are you really doing for them? What are you really doing for the black community if you're going to pretend like these unacceptable aspects of their culture are acceptable? That doesn't actually help them. You don't have to hate black people. You don't have to be mad at them or this and that. But what are you actually doing for them by making them feel like, well, this is really, both sides have this violence issue and all this, and pretend like you don't understand what per capita means. I mean, some people don't understand what per capita means. That's for sure. That's for sure. But my friend here, I know you're intelligent. You know what per capita means, right? In any case, hope you found this video helpful. God bless.